We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I'll go over it again. Today we're going to spend a few minutes talking about, in our groups, about the different powers of Congress. And just different powers that kind of affect our lives. Congress has a lot of powers, but these are just some specific ones that I wanted to go over with you. And then afterwards we'll look at our iPads and do the activities with the cartoons that kind of like I did last week, except we're going to kind of revamp it to focus on Congress. So first, if you'll notice, there's a card on your desk, and with each one there's a power, and this is a power that Congress has. This is something that it is their responsibility to do. And on the back of that card is two questions. You all have the same questions, and they are, how does this power affect my life? How does, the power to tax, the power to declare war, how does this affect my personal life? And then, what would it be like if Congress didn't have that power? Would there be private businesses taking over the post office, or would we even declare war, or would we just make decisions to go to war without any official declaration? So in your groups, I want you to look at those questions and kind of talk about those, and then we'll come together afterwards. So take about 5 or 10 minutes and do that for me, please. You don't need the iPad to answer questions. Yeah, just answer them in your group. Yeah, you don't need the iPad just yet. Just answer them in your group. So you can write it down, or you can just talk about it. Yeah, when you make an exemption in the Congress, same for like copyright. Our copyright would be copyrighted. This is a job just like rewrite this and sell it.
We know that people use their law means to make a trade. So the law restrictions on export
The power to run the post office. So this specifically, I was thinking of more like how does that affect your life? Do you use the post office? Do you order stuff offline? But the post office, as far as like if you have to mail in, think about in the future, mail in bills.
How does it affect your family? Because if the post office wasn't open, would it be
by mail? Which one do y'all have? Just talk about it in your group. The power to print and coin money. So if Congress didn't oversee that power, what would life be like?
Oh, yeah. It's a big piece of paper about their head.
Yeah, maybe every state. Okay, so how would that affect your daily life then? Yeah, I mean, are you good, but you have to transfer over money. If you want to say you want to go to China to go shopping, you have to transfer all the money over to their state.
They're going to their night to a street and then you can fight
The second one is how would the United States
and of course
power? People that do not have internet access may not be able to, or have credit cards or debit cards may not be able to pay, or send letters to their local IRS, stuff like that. I don't know how to communicate. Yeah, how would
Congress didn't have the power to tax. What would the United States be like?
we would have more money.
Yeah, because what does a taxpayer pay for?
I don't do it.
Keep that in mind.
Do you want to switch now? Because we're discussing it.
You can discuss it. I didn't know kind of a harder one, power to regulate trade. What do y'all think?
We're thinking that it keeps our prices of paying things very low because the mainly like not getting it based on it. And like two, how to different. It'd be like especially in the articles, like how everybody's protects each other really high. They're all like over with money. So it'd be like that again.
Yeah. And you're talking about like interstate trade and foreign trade. Right. Alright guys, y'all kind of, y'all like to discuss this? Alright, let's go back over this, okay? Let's start with this group. This group had the power to patent and copyright. The first question usually is, what does patent mean? That's just, if you like come up with an invention, it has to be approved by Congress and it has to be patented, meaning that someone else can't make that invention and make money off of it. So, Savannah, how does patenting, copywriting, Congress affect your life?
Well, see, if everybody made the same invention, then no, it would be, I don't know, honestly.
Okay. Well, remember I talked about copywriting. How about, what's something that you could do that would be against the law for Congress? Okay, so if you wrote everything down in this book, you binded it yourself, and you sold it on your own, what is that called? What is that called? What about when you're writing a paper in English?
Copywriting.
No. I don't know, give me a second.
Plagiarism.
Plagiarism. So that affects your life because it is saying that it is against the law for you to plagiarize in English or writing anything for you to copy from the book because it's copyrighted, meaning they own that information. They own what they wrote. So by plagiarizing, you're breaking that power of Congress. Okay? So, Lewis, how would the U.S. be different if Congress didn't have this power?
Everybody, same information.
Okay, yeah, people would have the same information. There would be no protecting your power to write things down. Like if you were a journalist, and you wrote something down that was just really incredible, then it's not protecting your kind of right to free speech and right to own that information, to own what you wrote. Alright. Okay, like this group had the power to declare war. Okay, Congress has that power. A lot of times the president has the power to over the troops, and so he can move troops as he wishes, but only Congress can declare war. So, Angel, how does this power of Congress affect your life?
It affects us in a good and a bad way. In a good way, it gives people jobs and protects us. And in a bad way, it takes you away from your family and it raises our taxes. Right.
So it raises taxes, but Congress having that power to declare war, it raises taxes, and things like that. Okay, Salem, how would the United States be different if Congress didn't have that power?
Like people would attack us and like we wouldn't be able to make alliances with other countries.
Okay, that's a good point. We wouldn't be able to make alliances with other countries. It would be, the Congress has to, not only does it have the power to declare war, it has to be able to approve treaties. Okay, and so that's really important when you're making alliances, especially on a global scale. But remember, like what I said, the checks and balances idea. The checks and balances idea that the president still has the authority to move troops as he wishes, even if Congress doesn't declare war. So we'd still be able to defend ourselves, but it would be based only on the president's actions, and there would be no check there. Okay. All right, this group over here, you have the power to tax. All right, Emma, how does this power affect your life?
We have teachers, taxes, the taxes we pay our teachers, government funding for those. And then, Medicaid, food stamps,
Right.
and everything.
Right, so a lot of things, well, it doesn't pay me yet, but yes, it pays Mr. Crawford. A lot of things that we pay, a lot of times we complain about paying taxes, but what are the purpose of paying taxes?
Have money in the government.
Yeah, for have to have money for the government. Now, sometimes we argue about the things that the the government spends that tax money on, but overall it is for building of roads and things like that. Yes, ma'am.
Where does our tax money go if there is no government?
Well, if there's no government, if there's no Congress, then there's no power to what? Tax. Right. So then you would kind of lose the funding for things like education and public works. What about some things that, as far as you, when you go to the grocery store, you get right. You get taxed every day, even if you don't have a job. You get taxed when you pay for things at the grocery store, and if you have a job, you get.
Ms. Walton,
Yes.
what about, is it up to the state on whether you tax groceries or not? Because in Georgia, they don't tax groceries. In Alabama, they do.
It's up to the state, yeah. And they can do, it's a percentage, the percentages are different too. Like, I think here it's 8% is our, I'm pretty sure it's 8%. And then I think if you go to Tennessee, it might be like 9%. I think it could be even different in different counties too, because I've gone over to another county and got, something was more expensive because it was a 9% tax rather than 8%. So, it's different, it's kind of up to the local government how they do that. Alright, this group right here, the power to coin and print money. Alright, so how does that affect your life, Anthony?
You don't have, everybody doesn't have the same money, if no one taxed, or if no one had, or if Congress didn't have the same money, no one had the same money, the state would be different.
Right, right. So every state could be different. And, I mean, we've talked about in the 13 colonies, every state had a different currency, meaning a different money. Alright, and so every time you cross state lines, so if they didn't have that power to coin and print money, then who would that power fall to, probably?
States.
The states, probably. And then it would be, how would the U.S. be different? Move on to the next, Ethan, how would the U.S. be different if the Congress didn't have that power? It wouldn't be the same money. Every state would have different money. So how does that affect you? If you're going to go to Chattanooga and take your girlfriend out, how does that affect you? Yeah, you're going to have to change currency. All right. Good job, guys. All right, over here. We have the power to run the post office, which I know y'all won't send out a lot of mail, probably. But you will one day.
Yeah.
You will one day for bills. So how does this power of Congress affect your life? Or will in the future affect your life, Brenda?
Because the post office, they say, most people send mail, like, their bills, and, like, other people, like, for instance, since I'm Hispanic, if I want to talk to my grandma and she don't have a phone or something, I can just send her a letter through the mail, which is, I would have to go to the post office, and,
Right.
Facebook.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, what if you don't have internet access in Mexico or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, how would the United States be different if they didn't run the post office?
People that pay their bills, like, they wouldn't have much trouble to, like, pay them, because if you don't have internet access or a phone or a debit card or credit card, because most of the time to pay something online, you have to have a credit card. It would be difficult for them to pay their bills and stuff.
Yeah, very, very good. And I would even go to say that maybe if the post office wasn't run by the government, then maybe private business owners would take that over, and then you'd have like 5 different companies trying to orchestrate, mail going from here to California and here to Wyoming, or from Wyoming to California, and that would be really confusing with 5 different, or only a few different companies running that. So the government, by controlling that, can kind of regulate it across the board. All right, our very last group. The power to regulate commerce. And commerce is just another fancy word for trade. And we're talking about interstate commerce. We're talking about those big old 18-wheeler trucks that you see when you're driving back and forth from school. That's interstate commerce. They are trucking items across the country. And we're also talking about foreign trade with other countries. All right, so Taylor, how does this affect your life?
It keeps everything you buy relatively cheap, because if say they didn't, well, that's the next question, but if they didn't, if it was higher prices, like the tax and import, that was higher, than any import we got from other countries would be more expensive, and it keeps everything, if say if we were to go to Georgia, it doesn't keep your taxing, like, off the roof, like 10%, 11%.
Right,
Like it is, well, it's about.
right, because it could be controlled again by the states, interstate commerce, and that could be a mess. All right, Allie, how would the U.S. be different if they didn't have that power? Which she kind of already answered that, so you can kind of chip in. How would the U.S. be different if the government didn't have the power to regulate trade?
Everything would be way more expensive. You wouldn't be able to afford anything.
Okay. So kind of like what she said. All right, very good, guys. I just kind of wanted to go over some of those powers of Congress. We're kind of going to do a little bit of a transition into the requirements to be a member of Congress. And we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but we'll go over it again, and a lot of it's going to be on your sheet. But you have two parts of Congress. It's a bicameral, meaning there's two separate parts of it. And you have, which ones do you have? Senate and House of Representatives, correct. And this is part of the negotiations, the end of those 13 colonies when we started the United States, part of the negotiations to have a bicameral legislature.